Well, welcome to Medical Sales U. I'm Dave Starrett, your host, and today's guest is Alexandra Flax. She is a senior sales representative in the area of plastic surgery. And I noticed that Alexandra was making posts on LinkedIn and they were going viral. And she was telling her story. Everybody was liking it. And, some people that I follow were liking her posts. I'm like, who is this? We need to have her on the Medical Sales U podcast to share your story. So Alexandra, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I've noticed some of your posts and I thought, you've kind of gone through, I think one of your posts had to do with you being in the operating room till 8 o'clock. And you said, well, some of you who are, in trauma, you don't think that's any big deal, but you were kind of relating to different people in different aspects of life. No medical sales position is exactly the same. There's different divisions. I'm in pharma oncology, but tell us a little bit about who is Alexandra Flax and what do you do?
So I am, as you mentioned, I'm currently a plastic surgery sales rep. I started my journey in medical sales in the ortho side of things. I was a trauma ortho rep back in Baltimore, spent close to 3 years doing that. It was a rough lifestyle for me. I was on call 24/7.
Now let's just pause right there because we have people wanting to break into trauma. They're like, I got the grit. I have what it takes. Now, when you say 24/7, did you get calls like really late at night? Tell us about that.
Yeah, we did. So part of that lifestyle, you're working on a team. But when I started out, part of, being at the bottom of the totem pole is kind of taking all of those calls and learning the industry and learning the job. So
wow.
24/7 was exactly what it was. Somebody comes in with an ankle fracture where their bone is sticking out of their leg at 12 a.m. They're not usually waiting to.
That didn't gross you out there. That didn't gross you out at all. Seeing the bone, you're like, I was made for this. What did you think when you saw that?
I enjoyed it. It definitely makes the 12 a.m. call a little bit more exciting, I guess.
Wow, 12 a.m., a bone fracture. This is a trauma. Now, what company was this with?
I worked with Stryker.
Okay, yeah, Stryker's one of the big ones. They go after all you athletes. Looks like you were like in a competition, like a race or something like that. What was that you did recently? You did like a post on LinkedIn.
I did a Hyrox.
Hyrox. That's like the new deal. Like everybody's talking about that.
It is. I actually saw a girl I followed for nutrition advice do one. And I texted my friend. I'm like, hey, you want to do this with me? And she was like, let's do it. And since then, I feel like it's all I see all over social media.
I saw so much.
A lot of fun and gearing up for the next one.
When's the next one?
We are going to compete in Dallas in November.
Dallas. I used to live in Dallas for about 15 years. Loved it. Loved Texas. And then I had a long distance relationship with my now wife. And she was from Columbus, Ohio. So she loaded me up with Buckeye gear. And I just came here. Yeah. And we're playing first opening game. We're playing against University of Texas. So, the Longhorns are coming. We're going to give them a butt whipping.
Well, I'm a Badger too.
Oh, you're a Badger. Wow.
Yeah, I'm against the Buckeyes there too.
Whoa. So where were you born?
I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. Stayed there all through high school. Went to Wisconsin for college. Go Badgers. And then went back to Baltimore, started my sales journey there.
Wow. And you came in with Stryker. How did you get a job at Stryker? They're so competitive. There's so many, our reps, we have people in the interview process with companies like Stryker right now, but they're all across the board. Pharmaceutical, probably our program, honestly, a third of ours are specialty pharmaceutical, like oncology. And then there's that diagnostic, but about a third of our students are wanting to be in the OR. How did you land a job with Stryker? What was that like?
I'm very transparent about this, and I wish I could, give more advice from the standpoint of where I was back then. But truly, LinkedIn and all these great communities like the one you have were just not a thing, a decade ago when I was trying to get in. And I had my heart set on working for Stryker. People asked why. And I'm like, I was very competitive. I love sports, played sports my entire life. Stryker was just the big name that people told me, you're an athlete, you go to Stryker. So my heart was set on it. And I had gotten in contact with a medical sales recruiter at the time. She had told me, you need 1 year of sales experience. So I went and did that 1 year of sales experience in IT staffing, called her up after the year. And I'm like, hey, I hit my 1 year. I'm ready to break in. And she helped me, interview at a lot of places, but didn't have the in really at Stryker at that time. So I just started applying online and ended up getting an interview. And basically, when I sat down for the interview, I sold myself and quite honestly begged for the job.
Really?
I told them I would work my butt off, and no one was going to work harder than me. And I got the role.
I like it.
So I'd like to give some, groundbreaking way of how I broke in. But truthfully, back then it was just, the basic apply, get the interview and go for it.
Well, I like the persistence. And I think that is transferable in today's is just showing up. And also you showed up in person too. I know a lot of times it's virtual and sometimes the energy is harder to transfer, on calls like this, but it shows up. You showed up, you were persistent, you showed your energy and that you would do whatever it took. And sometimes in that trauma role, there's a hesitancy. And you were willing to take it. Now, what was that like? Were you an associate or were you a full line rep? What was that like breaking into the industry with your very first position?
I was an associate. I worked under two guys who were both full line reps. It was rough. I know people use the analogy of like drinking water out of a fire hose, but I would say that is very true. I remember someone mentioning to me, in 6 months, you're going to feel so different. And then a year later, you're going to be on your way to, full line rep. So I remember truthfully, the first few months of the job, one of the rep I was working under, one of them said to me, you need to be home studying every single weekend. If you're not in cases with us on call, you need to be learning the ins and outs of our products. And that's what I did. So I dedicated myself to the job. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to get promoted. So it was rough. I loved it at the beginning because I had nothing else. I was only a year out of college.
What was the most exciting? What did you love about it?
I think what I loved was being able to see myself growing throughout the role each time I would step into a new case. So I would be absolutely terrified to go in. I remember, they'd text me and be like, you're going to cover this case by yourself today. And I would have, my anxiety would be through the roof. I'd be studying, the material up until the second I walked into the room with the doctor and being, so hesitant to use my voice to be like, hey, pull this drill out of the tray. And then, a few months later, they're like, oh, you're going to go cover, an ankle fracture again. And I'm like, I've done, 20 of those since then. This is easy. Walk in, hey to the scrub tech, grab this drill, grab this, grab that. So I think the trajectory of how you grow and you grow in that role so quickly because there's no other option.
Yes.
You either swim or sink.
It's almost like and if you can make it as a trauma associate at Stryker and you pass the test there, you're going to get promoted. And if you get promoted there, you can make it anywhere, right? I mean, it really sounds like that because now what was it like? How long did it take you to get promoted to a full line rep?
I got promoted just around the year mark, a little over a year. And I took over a territory. We still worked as a team. I just, got a cut of that territory at the time.
What if we have some listeners there who feel like they're stuck as an associate and they're hoping to get promoted, but they're not exactly sure? What can you think back? Like, what were some things that you did as an associate that really, helped to win over your team and also just do it with excellence? What did you do?
So first off, I would say asking about the timeline is imperative, right? Like you can't just go through your day or your year not having those conversations. So I remember when I had first started the job, I was like, how long does it take till I get promoted? And, they might be like, whoa, slow down. But it also gives you a goal, right? It gives you a
Yes.
metric, and it doesn't have to be, at the year mark, but, I knew somewhere around the year. So then throughout that year, my first 6 months for me was just doing everything I could to learn the job, learn the products, do the best I could. Then I remember from 6 months to the 12-month mark, my goal was make it known that the reps I was working under cannot do this job without me there. So I wanted to make myself so
I
valuable
love that.
that if I called them and said, I'm out of here tomorrow, they would be like, we can't keep, what are we going to do?
I like that. You did it with such excellence that they became dependent on you. They're like, we need Alexandra, and you gained their respect. Okay. Now you were with Stryker for how long total?
Just under 3 years.
Just under 3 years. And tell us about this, your opportunity after that.
So, and I always say this, I would not be where I am today without my position at Stryker. I love Stryker. I love the company as a whole. And again, it made my career. But I hit the point where the juice wasn't worth the squeeze for me. I felt like I was grinding insane hours. My cut of the territory was pretty small, and the guys I was working under were always going to have a bigger cut. They had started before me. They had years on me. I understood that. And I wanted to grow, I wanted to do more. And so I kind of made the decision where I'm like, all right, I'm going to see what else is out there. I felt like when I was at Stryker, I was kind of in this bubble of I couldn't see anything else but Stryker and this daily grind. So I was like, I'm going to look elsewhere. I was dating someone at the time who got a promotion to move to Virginia. And it was kind of the perfect way for me to be like, okay, I'm going to look and see what opportunities are in Virginia because we're going to move there. So I was on LinkedIn, what we preach all the time. I was scouring LinkedIn. I was reaching out to different reps, and the medical sales industry is so big. I always preach this. I'm like, there are so many jobs out there that we have no idea about because we get so focused on this one line that we're
that's
like,
so true.
I want to do that, but there's so many other things. So I remember seeing, plastic surgery sales rep come across my screen, and I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, that sounds fun.
Yes.
I knew I wanted to stay in the OR. I love being in the OR. I love the hospital. I love that lifestyle. I didn't want to be on call anymore. I didn't want to work weekends anymore. I also knew that I had only been, in the industry for 3 years, so that, I didn't really know if that was going to be possible. I had always been told, you put your time in and then you can ask for what you want. So I reached out to the manager of the role on LinkedIn. He had just filled the position, but had told me, there's going to be another one opening up in Virginia Beach in the next few months. At this point, we're kind of in the midst of COVID. So,
and where are you living at this point? Where is that?
I'm in Baltimore.
You're still in Baltimore, okay? And
Yep.
so and that's something to keep in mind too, because I have students who are thinking about moving, right? And some companies are like, you need to know the territory. Some hiring managers are like that. But this hiring manager says there's going to be an opening in Virginia Beach, and you must have made an impact on him for him to think it doesn't matter. She's the right person. And so keep going with your story. I just want to pause there and for our listeners.
Yeah, and that's important and a great point. When I interviewed, that was something we discussed. I didn't have any relationships in Virginia Beach. But I also didn't have any relationships when I started in Baltimore either. So it's how you sell yourself, right?
Yes.
So I'd reached out to him on LinkedIn. We had a phone conversation. It was a great conversation. He had actually lived in Baltimore in his past. He was a huge Steelers fan. I'm a huge Ravens fan. So we had some good, camaraderie. And I ended up interviewing, driving down to Virginia and interviewing him actually probably a month and a half to 2 months later. It really took some time. Like, as I mentioned, it was during COVID. So everything was a lot slower moving, the entire process. I interviewed with him and the rep that was being promoted. So he would have been passing his territory on to me. And we interviewed for about 2 hours. And I really did everything I could to sell myself on the job. But like I mentioned, on LinkedIn all the time, I also was interviewing them. I'm like, is this something I want to
It's
do?
so good.
Right? Like I still work at Stryker. I still have a great job.
You got
I
a great
don't have
job.
to. Oh, right. So I'm going to make sure this is exactly what I want just as much as they are for, their position too. And I remember him saying to me, I'm just curious. I'm concerned because you're coming from Stryker and, you work so hard and all this stuff. And I'm like, what? I promise you no one's going to work harder. And he's like, oh, I know. I'm just concerned that you might be a little bit bored because you're not going to be getting calls, every day, every weekend.
I love that you're doing that. You're doing your research and you were interviewing them. And I think that's true. I'm in oncology pharma and I have device reps reach out to me about every day who have reached a point in their career who want to now get into, they see what I do in oncology pharma. And I often say, are you sure? Like, you're not going to be in the operating room. You're going to have oncologists who don't want to see you. And then you have a 5-minute conversation once you do in dinner programs. And you're going to be meeting with pharmacy, with the in-service, and it's a lunch with the pharmacist. Is that going to be boring for you? Like, it's like, no, yeah, maybe you have better hours. Maybe it's more of an 8 to 5. And for some people, they want to drop their kids off at school. But is this going to be boring for you? I mean, and I think it's so good that you were doing your research in that company and you were thinking ahead. And a good thing for the hiring manager to ask you those questions, to realize, is this the right fit? Now, what was it that made you think this is an area that I think I want to go into?
I think, as a woman, breast cancer is so prevalent these days. And there's a very high chance that, someone in your life has dealt with breast cancer, a mother, a relative, a friend's mother. Unfortunately, it's on the rise. So it was something that I was familiar with. I knew I got to stay in the OR, but I also got the other aspect of not only doing the breast cancer reconstruction, but also the fun cosmetic side, which I obviously didn't have that at Stryker. So I felt like it gave me, the best of both worlds of, staying in the OR and making a difference, in the patient's lives of people going through traumatic surgery with breast cancer reconstruction. But then also this other side that felt a little more salesy to me, where I'm like, okay, I can have some fun and go into these offices and do plastic surgery events. And so there was just a lot that appealed to me that was totally different than what I was currently doing. And I also just liked the idea of a challenge and like, am I actually good at sales? Like, can I really go and sell something? Where I felt in the trauma world, it was more, case coverage, battling your competitors, and less of like, let me actually sell this product.
And I like the combination there in your field of both the, there's the hope, there's the reconstruction, there's some patients who have had breast cancer. And then there's also, as you say, the selling part, the aesthetics aspect, of your role too. And so, I do think it's fantastic that you had that foundation. But I do think when you think about your colleagues, not all of them have come from trauma, right? Across the country, they have different stories. And I think what stands out is your ability to share your story, to tell your story, and to somehow translate your past experience that has made you who you are. And whatever that is, you transfer that energy in that story of who you are to the position that you're applying to. And I'm sure it's like Jim Collins' book, I reference it a lot, Good to Great. You just get the right people on the bus. I'm sure that you could take that story, you could transfer it to a number of other places. And that's what selling is all about. Alexandra, okay, so how long have you lived in Austin now?
July will be 2 years.
2 years. How do you like the heat down in Texas?
It's hot. I think
not quite like Wisconsin, is it?
So complete opposites, right? I think when I moved in July of 2023, it hit a record heat. It was like 120 degrees or something
Wow.
for 10 days straight or something insane. So I remember being like, uh-oh, what did I do? And I love the heat. I'd rather be hot than cold, but it's something else. That's for sure.
Did you ever notice, like after work, when you got back into your car, how hot it is?
All
Like
the time.
all the time.
I'm
It's
just
just
always sweating.
just sweating. That was me. I was in Virginia too. I was in a town called Stanton. I went to Liberty University. And
Okay.
right after college, I moved to Dallas, and I was just amazed like how hot it was. But I love Dallas. I love Texas. It's so hot. So, can you talk to us a little bit about LinkedIn? Because yeah, that's how I found you. Your posts were going like you were getting like 500, 700 likes on a lot of these posts. What drew you to LinkedIn, but not just to be a scroller, right? But tell us some tips. You're a contributor. You share ideas on LinkedIn.
Thank you. It's been fun. When I decided to start posting on LinkedIn, it was totally out of the blue, kind of like here's my story. I enjoy writing. And then I also have a passion for medical sales. I felt like I would have these conversations with people in the hospitals or people who knew me in Virginia. How do you make the transition from ortho to plastics? I want to do that. How do I get out of ortho? I feel stuck. I was getting a lot of these questions from friends or friends of friends. And one day I'm like, I'm just going to write my story on LinkedIn because I saw other people doing it,
I love it.
not thinking it would really go anywhere. Right. And next thing I know, that post went viral, so to speak. And my inbox was being, blown up with,
Did you have a lot of people
I want
wanting
to
to
do
pick your
that.
brain? I want to pick your brain.
Yep. And then after that, I was like, it's easy for me because I'm passionate about it and
Yeah.
I'm not following any rubric. I'm not, forcing myself to make a post that day. Like if I don't have anything to say, no post is happening that day.
That's so good.
So it's just been kind of a creative outlet for me where something happens in my day or, someone messages me and sparks an idea in my head and then I write about it.
I really do like that. I had hired out a firm to do all my social media for me, and they weren't gaining traction. And then I made a couple posts too, and a couple of them got a lot of traction. And I do think that people can see if it's really you. And even when, and I use AI, I use ChatGPT. Even when it's ChatGPT, I tell people, tweak it, make it your own. And it's better just to use AI to tell them to edit what you already want to say, right? And tell them to delete the hyphens. That's a tip there for everybody listening. I tell my students, get on there, delete the hyphens. And also, if you do want to schedule it out, like I do sometimes, like I do it on Saturday morning, or I think about something and I'm like, I just posted yesterday. I want to schedule it out. But I do think people can tell if it's really you behind it. And I think that's what shows. And people are like, this is really Alexandra and this is her story. It inspires me. I can relate to the struggles, but her advancement and her acceleration and success, it motivates me. It motivates me. And even if you post something personal about it, it's just like, oh crap, I better get myself in shape. I better start, I want to train for something else, right, as well. And so even if it's something motivational, you're bringing inspiration. Tell us, okay, what is your day? What does a week look like you in this role of a senior plastic surgery sales representative? It's not the hours of trauma. What does an 8 to 5 look like for you? And kind of walk us through your week.
Sure.
And even your personal, even before that, like when do you work out? When do you have social, time? What about your weekends? Talk to us about just what does your week look like?
So the nice thing about plastic surgery these are elective cases. So surgeries are usually scheduled out, a week in advance. There's the rare case that it's, going to be a next day type surgery, usually a week out or so. So I keep a paper planner. I swear by it. I've done it my whole life since, high school and all that. I write everything down. It just helps me out. So I have, all my surgeries scheduled out. I try to go to at least 1 or 2 surgeries in the hospital, in the OR every single day, depending on, where they are. My territory from where I live spans about an hour and a half north of Austin to an hour and a half south of Austin. So just depending on, where I can get to that day, 1 to 2 surgeries. And depending on what time those surgeries are is when I wake up. I always am up within the 5 a.m. range. But, if I have a further surgery, I might do a 5 a.m. workout. So I'm able to get to that surgery. But for me, working out in the morning is imperative. I never miss a morning workout. Very rare. It just gets my day started on the right track. Come home from a workout or go straight from the gym to a surgery. Coffee, live and run off coffee. Surgery in the morning up until usually about lunchtime. And then my afternoon is spent on going by offices, possibly running implants that maybe, FedEx didn't deliver on time, an urgent need. I schedule, lunches or office meetings usually in the afternoons, answering emails, returning phone calls, anything like that usually happens in the afternoon for me. Evening, sometimes yoga, dinner, sometimes seeing friends, depending on plans, sometimes a work dinner. And then I am a grandma, so I normally go to bed sometime around 9 or 10 p.m.
Well, you're very disciplined, great schedule. And if you're waking up that early, you have to. So that sounds like a great schedule. Well, tell us a little bit about, we were talking about, you did this, what was the competition you did? What was the fitness that's going viral now? It's like CrossFit without weights. What is it called again?
It's called Hyrox.
Hyrox. And you're going to do that again, right? You're telling me.
Yes. So my partner and I, it was our first competition. We really had no idea what to expect. The gym we go to trains specifically for the race. There's a lot of people that do it. So we're lucky enough to, go to a gym that has people training for that specific competition.
And what type of gym is this? Is it kind of like CrossFit? Is it kind of like is it just a gym? Tell us about your gym.
The gym is actually, it has just about everything you could want. I think it's more of a hybrid athlete type gym. So, you can go and lift weights, work out on your own. They have a bunch of classes ranging from, a Hyrox class to a boxing class. So, primal tools classes. So there's just about everything there, which makes it exciting when you're waking up to go do a workout at 5 a.m. But yeah, so we had a goal time in mind for, a first race and where we thought our fitness level was at. We're both very competitive. My partner and I went to college together. We played club basketball together. So
you're some hoopers.
We're about the same. Yep, we're hoopers. Same fitness level. So we competed. We beat our goal time by about 10 minutes, which is a lot in the grand scheme of the race. And we finished second in our age group.
That's impressive.
So we were pretty excited. So now, obviously, our goal is to finish first.
Number one. Well, congratulations. That is,
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Alexandra, it's been great having you on the podcast, and just thank you so much. Appreciate the inspiration on LinkedIn. You're sharing value. You're doing great at your job, and you're giving a hope to a lot of these, to women in Texas, and in your day-to-day job, but also nationally. People are hearing about your post, and so just thank you so much for joining the podcast, and we look forward to staying in touch with you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dave. It's been fun.
All right, you take care. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.